Welcome to the Josh Hall Web Design Show. Helping you build better websites and create a web design business that gives you freedom and a lifestyle you love.
Welcome, friends, into episode 156 of the podcast. To say that I am pumped for you about this one is a massive, massive understatement, because I am so excited to be bringing on the CEO of a company in the WordPress realm that is one of the leading companies in WordPress, and they are on the forefront of managing and maintaining and optimizing WordPress websites. In this episode, I have for you James Farmer, who is none other than the CEO of the uber popular WordPress company, WPMU DEV. If you're not familiar with WPMU DEV, they are an all-in-one solution for WordPress, including hosting, management, optimization. If you don't know too much about the company as a whole, you probably are familiar with some of their plugins, which include WP Forminator, Defender, Hummingbird. If you do any sort of research on WordPress plugins, you're going to see all sorts of WPMU Dev tools. So for this episode, it was a real privilege and an honor to bring on their CEO, James Farmer, to talk about maintaining WordPress sites now and some of the best practices and what he sees in the landscape now, but also what he sees up ahead. Because as you'll hear in this interview, James was really in the early days of WordPress and has seen the evolution of how to maintain and run WordPress sites, whether you have a big agency or whether you're just a freelancer. He talks a little bit about multi-site in this episode, which I don't have too much experience in myself, but the idea of how to properly maintain sites is really the genesis of WPMU Dev. And it was awesome to pick his brain about what he's seen over the past decade or so, where things are at now, but more importantly, where things are headed. You're really going to get a good snapshot from somebody who is, again, as a leader in the WordPress realm and is in the forefront of the game. So I can't wait to see what type of takeaways you pull from this episode. James was an awesome guy. I really enjoyed getting to spend some time with him, and I think he had some fun as well. And by the way, James wanted to make sure you as listeners of this show get an exclusive deal. If you're interested in trying WPMU Dev out, you can actually get 20% off any plans that you choose with them by just going to joshhall.co/WPMUDev. That's WPMUDEV. One word, joshhall.co/WPMUDev. That'll take you to a special link where you can get 20% off your plans, and I highly recommend them. I have a lot of students who are not customers of WPMU Dev. They are raving fans. So I'm familiar with a lot of their plugins and a lot of their tools, and they are one of the tools that I recommend in my maintenance plan course. And by the way, before we dive into this episode, if you are not yet maintaining and hosting and running and really taking care of your clients' WordPress websites, the time is now. It's an amazing time to start up your hosting and maintenance plan, and I want to encourage you to join my maintenance plan course, which is open and available to you now. Version 2.0 is out. It's getting awesome reviews, and a lot of my students are getting incredible results with all the new lessons and revamped lessons that I put in the course. It is your proven path and plan for setting up, launching, and selling your recurring income maintenance plan. And WPMU Dev is one of the tools that I recommend that you might want to look into. There's a few different tools you can use for hosting and maintaining sites, but WPMU Dev is definitely on the forefront. Their customer support is also incredible. And you'll even hear in this interview, James, as a big CEO like himself, actually still likes to get into the weeds and help his customers and get into the nitty gritty, which I just love. I love that about a company. So check that out today. There'll be a link in the show notes where you see this episode at joshhall.co/156. I would love to help you build your maintenance plan. And without further ado, here's James Farmer, CEO of WPMU Dev. Enjoy this talk and enjoy how to learn to better take care of your sites now and moving forward. And again, last call, go to joshhall.co/WPMU Dev for an exclusive discount for any of their plans. Here we go. James, welcome on to the show, man. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you for having me, Josh. It's great to be here.
Yeah, really, really excited to chat with you, man. Your tool is awesome. Your tool set. It's funny because I self-admittedly, I use Managed WP. My agency has always used that, although I've been using a lot of your plugins for a very long time. And a lot of my students who use WPMU Dev are like, religious disciples about it. Like it's all or nothing. So I think you guys are up to some really cool stuff, man. I'm really excited to chat with you about really what you're up to and the importance of hosting and good security and maintenance. So needless to say, it's awesome to have you on. Thanks for taking some time. Just to kick us off for folks who don't know you, do you want to let us know, first off, where you're based out of and what you guys do? If people who don't know WPMU Dev, what do you do?
Well, yeah, thanks again, Josh, for being here. So I am based in Melbourne, Australia. So currently it's a wet spring morning as chatting to you in the States. We're kind of rolling through, which is also kind of exciting because, of course, we're at the end of the world's longest lockdown. Just finished. Right. Like, literally the start of this week was international flights came back. So,
I was curious how things were in Australia as a whole, because I have a lot of students in Australia, and I know it's been pretty challenging with the difference of particularly how to get clients and networking and things like that when it's been in lockdown.
Absolutely, 100%. It's been a really kind of fascinating time, both from a business perspective and, from a personal perspective, and obviously a lot of different views about it. But I think broadly, people are just super happy to be opening up and be able to get out and about, and might even have the old WordCamp, around the corner, which is just like, oh my word, in person. Yeah. Seeing people, yeah, not sitting on my couch on my Greyhound.
Well, web designers are notoriously awkward anyway. So after a year and a half of not seeing anyone in person, I'm sure WordCamps are going to be extra interesting over the next few years.
high level nerd awkwardness.
Yeah, right.
Just speaking for myself.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much for the intro. Very kind to say. Absolutely. WPMU Dev, to those of the people who don't know it, we started off largely as essentially a plugin store for a WordPress multi-site, and we've since evolved into, a kind of a mainstream provider of WordPress services. From your performance to your security, to as you mentioned, your hosting, and also in many ways a similar to Managed WP kind of website management system. So that's kind of probably where we're at the moment and where we're kind of heading.
Yeah, I didn't realize until more recently that it really is an all-in-one solution now. My first exposure to you guys was your plugin SMUSH, which I was a big fan of and still use on a lot of sites. And then I had tried out Defender Pro and a few others, and then I knew it was a hub for managing sites. It's really interesting to see that you've gone the all-in-one solution route, which I think is exciting because a lot of people are sick of kind of Frankensteining their own solutions together and piecing a lot of things together. So I imagine that was some of the genesis of bringing it all together. But I would love to just get some context from your perspective, James. When did the idea of hosting and maintenance come to the forefront for you? Like, when did the importance of that come to you? And was that the genesis of creating WPMU Dev, or how did the importance of hosting and maintenance factor into the beginning of this company?
It's a great question, and I can tell you one thing: it certainly wasn't the genesis. We've actually been a hosting company indirectly for as long as we've been around. My first ever project was EduBlogs, which essentially was a big multi-site host. We then kind of turned that into EduBlogs Campus, which is now Campus Press, and we host like a few hundred institutions from Cornell to Harvard. Like kind of looking after their kind of WordPress multi-site setup. But the WPMU Dev was always about plugins. But one of the things that we did start doing really early on was that back in a past life, on my uni holidays, I was a market researcher. And I used to kind of like go and stand in the center of towns, and you'd kind of drag people over and say, hey, how you doing? My target audience was mostly people who are like my mum's age and felt sorry for me standing in the center of towns. And you'd ask them kind of questions about, Mars bars and, how they felt about particular adverts and brands and things. And so what I kind of did was, to an extent, really early doors, was translate that to WPMU Dev. So we essentially asked our members the sorts of things that they're after and what they needed. And I don't know if you guys, you would have done plenty of surveys in your time, and, it's kind of ranked from 1 to 10, and choose A, B, C, D, and those things there. In my view, those are kind of like lazy surveys. It's like trying to use like a chat bot as a support mechanism. Sorry, Burritos are just saying hello.
Oh, perfect. I know we were just talking. You got your pups with you, which is totally fine. All pups and all pets are welcome onto the podcast. My Goldens make it on occasionally. So
I suppose essentially we've spent. I personally spend every year we do a massive survey, and it's all open questions. It's essentially what do you like? What do you need in your WordPress environment? What are your challenges? What are your problems? What are the things we can improve on? What should we develop? And that's grown from a few dozen responses to a few hundred to a few thousand. And I think this year it took me 3 weeks to read through all of them. Like it's like a massive novel composed of a combination of it's psychologically quite interesting as well.
I was just wondering if you were doing those personally, or if you had a team filter those out, or categories.
Both. Yeah, but actually both. So I read every single word, every last word, every last nice word, and every last nasty word, because you can't please everybody all the time, and
sure.
History. But one of the things was about 3 years ago was that our members said, very clearly to us that what they were looking for was a kind of integrated hosting platform that fit with the fundamentals of what they wanted to do their website. So, for example, kind of automated updates, backups, the kind of tools that certainly Managed WP were offering, but that were then actually integrated into a hosting environment, and also had the plugins and the thing that we accidentally became somewhat famous for, which was support. So so it was like, okay, well, guys, this is going to take a couple of years. and we gave it a crack, and we launched officially, I think, in September of 2019 or October, so about 2 years ago. And we've now got 20,000 live sites with custom domains mapped to them, and growing super fast, and loads of happy customers, which is awesome.
That is awesome. The all-in-one solution, I think, is becoming more popular for a lot of different companies, particularly in this line where you've got plugins, you've got WordPress management, and you've got what is most important, where their sites are. And you want to make sure it all plays nicely. Like I mentioned, the whole Frankenstein approach is very common in WordPress, but I always had a problem with Managed WP, to where a lot of my sites would work great on SiteGround, but they would have trouble connecting on like GoDaddy, which is so ironic because GoDaddy had purchased Managed WP. So I was like,
that's a super fair comment. And given that we kind of, we've always, our genesis, is with all of the different hosting, SiteGround, as you said, GoDaddy, Bluehost, of course, some great hosts. And, we've been working really well and strongly with them. We like to think that people can actually come to us and they can use a kind of hybrid if they want as well. So we do offer, like, it's all rolled in together and it's all cozy, it's all nice, and it's super transparent as well. So like we use Linode. I don't know, how do you pronounce it?
I've heard it Linode in the States, but if you listen to this podcast at all, you'll realize we usually make up at least 1 or 2 words per episode. So not the best resource for how to pronounce things correctly.
Oh man, yeah, I've had my moments of my pronunciation. My personal favorite was I think for many years, because I'm kind of more of a text chat kind of person, was the Ngix, as I used to call it.
Ah, gotcha. Yeah.
So we Ngix, wasn't that?
I don't know if I've actually ever said that out loud. My brain just kind of froze for a second because I've only ever written that. I don't think I've ever actually said that out loud. Yeah.
Yeah, well, Nginx. It's like, oh my word, that's completely incredible. Right. Yeah, essentially we've been working with all of the hosts. We kind of rolled together, and so we kind of like, we like to think that we offer kind of the best of both worlds.
Yeah, and now it's interesting. So hosting kind of being the final piece with your current setup. When did the management of WordPress sites come about? And actually, I meant to ask, forgive me, I actually don't know the full history. When did WPMU Dev launch? And was it strictly just a few plugins at first?
WPMU Dev launched in, oh my word, an excellent question. I'm going to say 2007.
Wow, I didn't realize it was that. No, I'm not going to say that old, but experienced.
Very old, very old. And yeah, just a few plugins. We were basically, WordPress.org didn't have a repository for multi-site services. Yep. So that was it. It was just a free setup. And then me and my co-founder, Andrew Billets, at the time, we set up InkSub. It was forever mispronounced by people as InScub. So that's another pronunciation.
That's another one.
We set up InkSub as an agency to kind of like throughout 2007, 2008, essentially specializing in multi-site or multi-user as it was then. And that went really well. So we got loads of experience, dealing with these customers, kind of ranging from like, kind of 10 grand kind of site creation maintenance, up to kind of 6-figure numbers. And then all of a sudden the GFC hit in 2008. There weren't that many people super interested in spending 6 figures on a blogging network for their company or a newspaper. They were like kind of more concerned with surviving. And at the same time, WPMU Dev started kind of as a side project where we started to put the code that we were developing, because of course, it's open source, but we'd started to put it into WPMU Dev and say to people, for a couple of $100 a year, you can have access to this and support, and we will continue to upgrade it for you.
Gotcha.
And support it and manage it. And also, like I said, we'd ask people how they wanted to improve it, where they wanted to go. And then we would quite literally kind of custom develop enormous multi-site plugins for a couple of hundred of users who quite like that. And so we kind of pivoted into there, and then that kind of eventually grew out. I suppose the genesis of WPMU Dev as it is now would be 2009.
Okay.
And ongoing.
And it's interesting because that was when I got into web design, coincidentally, was the end of 2009. And I do remember hearing about WordPress very early on. It seemed like 2010, at least from my perspective in the States, was like the WordPress year. That was like when it really seemed to start catching on. So I don't know what it was like back then, but were there any other systems out there for managing WordPress sites in bulk? Because I was so new to the industry then, I probably had no pulse on that. What was the landscape like around 2010 with managing sites and things like that?
That's a great question. And in fact, that also fits into very much kind of our genesis and where we've gone, because WordPress multi-user, which then became multi-site, was effectively your solution if you were looking at bulk management. So we wrote kind of some of the first custom domain plugins that allowed you to map individual subsites to specific domains. And this was a way in which people were essentially managing, and still are actually, hundreds or thousands of individual custom domain sites using one install. And so essentially we started supporting and managing this system that I'm sure many of your viewers will be familiar with is a super efficient, certainly a very cost efficient, even though technically more challenging method of providing a bunch of different sites to a bunch of different people. Because of course, while you can go to EduBlogs or WordPress.com and sign up for, people forget that WordPress.com is like actually a multi-site install. Just a very good one.
I forget about it all the time. I don't even think about it. Yeah.
So while you can go there and sign up, of course, you can also, you can come to me as a web developer, and I can have a form and I can say, I chat to you about these things, and I can then set it up on my multi-site install, map your domain, put it together and hand it over to you like a regular WordPress site. So that was essentially how people were managing loads of different sites in an efficient manner back in the day. But of course, what happened over time was that people's demands and requirements became more complex. People wanted to have more custom plugins, which is a challenge with WordPress multi-site. You kind of have to have a one plugin to fit them all kind of feel. They wanted to have more particular control. They wanted to be able to look after individual sites that became much more than, kind of a blog or something, and a truly, semantic publishing platform. I mean, for example, with Campus Press, we now host a range of things from like 20 to 30,000 blogs for students and e-portfolios in some school districts to actually, in some instances, their main website. And it's just like one install. So it's the complexity grew, and as the complexity grew, it became more evident as managed WP, infinite WP, main WP, all of those people picked out fairly early on that a much more powerful method was to manage multiple single WordPress installations rather than multi-site. And so essentially our evolution was noticing that and saying, okay, well, how do we support that? And, how do we offer, what are the main things that people are after? As I mentioned, updates, making sure everything is, running smoothly, having security that you could wrap around the whole thing, be able to perform, kind of essentially be able to like perform mass tweaks, change a config on 100 plugins with like a couple of clicks, which are incidentally all tools that we offer at WPMU DEV.
Right.
But yeah, that sort of thing. But yeah, a real evolution.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. And I was thinking for most everybody listening and watching this most everyone's freelancers who have maybe a dozen clients or a couple dozen clients, or maybe small teams where they're getting into 40, 50, 60 clients. Once you get to that number in particular, even a couple dozen clients, you've got to manage your sites all in one place, because I know before I realized there was a managed WP, or even before WPMU Dev, I was logging into sites one at a time, updating. And I actually had a student recently who's fairly new to the game do this. And he said, it's taken me at least a few hours a week to do this. And I said, dude, have you ever heard of like managed WP or any of these other tools? Yep. And he's like, no, when you're new to the industry, you don't know what you don't know. And it was like life-changing for him. He was like, how did I not know? And I should have, and a lot of people go like, I should have known there was something out there. And I think sometimes when you get into web design, there's so many things to learn. There's so many things you can do. You have to reel yourself back. Some of the basic tools and principles can be very easily overlooked. So it's funny. I think maintenance is something that's so simplistic and natural that it's almost easy to overlook when there's new designers. I know I did. Like I had a mentor of mine who coincidentally uses WPMU Dev, your whole suite, and raves about you guys. And he's not a raver. Like he's a very like business, straight to the point. It was funny because I emailed him and I just asked him about some of the new tools that he's using with you guys. And he's like, we use them for everything. And he's like, they're the best for everything. So it's kind of funny. Somebody who's very like reserved was all about it. But I say that to say years ago, he told me, Josh, you should charge like $39 a month to update your clients' plugins. And I was like, what? First of all, why would anyone pay me to do that? They can do that themselves. This was early me without a business mind and without the idea of recurring revenue, but it was that simple. Like that was the genesis for me of the seed planting of a maintenance plan. And I'm happy to, I really am big on maintenance plans now, which we'll talk about later. But I say all that to say, it does seem like there was a difference back in those days, 2010, 11, 12, 13, where I don't know if maintenance was as common. Would you say that was the start of the whole movement for maintenance plans?
Yeah, I think you're pretty much on the money there. So the biggest complaint that people used to have was people would put together a great site, it would look really nice, it would do all of the things they wanted, and then it would be like a handover. And there would be, okay, so if I want support, I guess I'm going to email a dev guy who's going to be able to put it up for here, but it's going to cost this much and it's going to be an unexpected. It's not something that people are comfortable with. And trust it, from somebody who charges monthly or annual subscription fees, people, they get a bit twitchy about it. They kind of like, they either want to have like a fixed amount they're going to have here, or they're going to, like, they certainly don't want to see things spiraling out of control. So maintenance is absolutely critical, but it's not just about updating plugins. It's about giving your clients a lovely ongoing soft touch experience. So for example,
very well said.
Well, so for example, the white label report kind of experience. So every month providing your client with a rundown of not only what's been updated, the security scans in place, what's been fixed. But I think our white label reports, without blowing our own horn, I know there's lots of things around here, but also take them through, for example, their average performance during the month. So we have tools which ping your site to check the speed and kind of feedback. And of course, anything else that you want to come through. So you get clients a report. You could have that every month. You could have that every week, up, down components. And what we've also developed, which we're pretty chuffed about, and it's actually super, super new at the moment, is a thing we call the Hub Client, which is actually a client portal that you run on your own site where your clients can log in and they can have their own kind of customized WPMU Dev experience with your branding.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So actually, literally, it looks like people will be familiar with WPMU Dev. You can see the dashboard, you can see the core components, you can see plugins, and all of those different components. But you can also, as the web developer, as the manager, control exactly what they can see. You can also control what they can edit or not edit. You can give them like all of these like different keys and stuff to the kingdom and stuff. And a lot of clients you'll find will also have more than one website. They might have one for this, and once they've successfully set up, one for their business, they might have a personal one, an alternative business. They might have one for their mum, and
right.
This actually allows them to. Previously, it's been a case of like, I'm the web developer. I'm going to take care of all of this in the background. You'll get some reports. You'll get some information. We'll keep you up to date on those different things there. Now we've got the ability to say, I'm the web developer. Here is your control panel. And this is, this looks like Josh's web development company. It's got my branding on it. It's super custom. It's on my domain. It sits there, you log in, it's got a beautiful login experience. And you can kind of hand it over a little so that you don't need to necessarily even spend so much time as the web developer yourself on it. And I'll stop in a moment because this is my area of particular fascination. Essentially, for some of your kind of like more old school people involved in the environment, we are looking at a much better cPanel experience. Think of WPMU Dev as Web Host Manager, WHM, but much nicer. And think of the experience we offer your customers as cPanel, except cPanel for humans.
Gotcha. So you don't want to. Most web designers don't want to see PHP MyAdmin, let alone a body shop, guy. Like he doesn't need to be seen.
They do not. And while we obviously offer that as part of our tools for web developers, you can easily configure this so that your client will get a lovely experience, be able to see what are the cool things about their site, but not destroy it.
Yeah. And that was something I found with clients. I had a lot of clients who they wanted to run their business. They just wanted me to do the website, but they wanted to know the basic stats and numbers. That's perfect. That was like the ideal client. I also had a lot of clients who were pretty savvy, and maybe they had tried building their own WordPress site before. So they knew the lingo, they knew plugins, they knew some security and stuff like that. They may have even been using SMUSH or one of your guys' plugins, but they wanted me to take over. But it is nice to give them a little more access. They don't need to go completely backstage, but they get like VIP access. It's a little more. Maybe it's something like that, to where I do think there's a shift now where there's a little more client empowerment. And I think a lot of small businesses are tired of agencies and tired of feeling like a number, tired of feeling like they have no control. And I actually think sites like Wix and Squarespace are doing freelancers a favor now, because there's so many people getting burned from having no control over their sites that they want a little more control. Even if they don't want to actually control it themselves, they still want to know they have access to stuff. And I do think that's really popular. So I think you guys are definitely on the right trend of giving access to clients and letting us as web designers tweak that access if need be.
100%. And at the very simplest level, you can actually say to your clients, if you want to log into our client environment, your client portal, it's a place where you can look at either if you've got one site or three sites, and we do single sign-on to their WordPress sites. So you can log into, Josh Hall /hub and click on the WordPress link, and lo and behold, you're in the back of your WordPress admin. Yeah. And you didn't even need to go to WP login.
Right. Yeah.
Which is not a bad thing.
Yeah. I just think about how many hours I burned logging into sites myself, doing updates, and but you live and learn. And that's luckily, I think maintenance and hosting is much more common now for web designers, and therefore it's also common for clients. I think most clients understand that there's going to be some sort of subscription service or some sort of help that clients are going to be offering that's ongoing. I think the real beauty about the opportunity now for whether you call it hosting and maintenance plans or care plans or whatever, I think customers in general are now more interested and used to subscription services than ever before. We have tons of subscriptions, me and my family. We've got Disney Plus, Netflix. I've got my razors on subscriptions. My wife's got skincare on subscriptions. Our dog food's on subscription.
Likewise, yeah.
It's all, we're used to it. So I think there's a lot more power for web designers now, which is really great. And we can utilize these tools. I was just thinking, I was kind of like trying to visualize the past decade for web design and WordPress in particular. It did seem like it started off with updates. That was the biggie, just updating plugins. Because once sites started getting hacked and security became a pretty big deal, I think most everyone realized one of the common factors to most hacks was outdated plugins. So it seemed like, and I'm interested to hear your take on this, but it seemed like to me, it started with updates. And then security became a biggie. You needed to, and I had this all the time. I launched a site. I didn't have a maintenance plan. Year later, it got hacked. The client was pissed. They were like, dude, what the heck? And I'm like, oh, shoot, I don't even know what to do. Then there were solutions like Security and other hack cleaning type of programs and softwares out there. So it seemed like security was the next step. Backups also became really important because people started losing their sites if they deleted the database or moved it. And I had some nightmare experiences like that. And then it seemed like the idea of that reporting, like you said, the soft touch reports for maintenance plans. I love that terminology because I think it's exactly what it was. It kept us as web designers front and center, top of mind each month, even if they didn't use us for updates. And then now it seems like there is that push to a little more client control, a little more maybe high touch or intensive type of approach to management. Would you say that's a fair assessment for like the past 10 years of maintenance?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good call. I think I think it's fascinating because we're still in an area that we're discovering where we go into. And I don't know when I'm knocking around and chatting to various people like Dan Jim or something, or you will find people. A lot of people have most people have websites for their businesses. And I like to ask them, okay, well, who are you using? How's it going? And if it is like a Squarespace or a Wix, I like to work out actually how much you're spending on it. And it's and you would be shocked. For all of the advertising and kind of the look, it's easy, simple, cheap, all of these different things here. I reckon I'm going to say at least $500 to $600 a year. So we're talking Australian, so it's a little bit less than US, but like around about the 50 kind of buck mark. Because once you've got your simple website set up, then you want to have this particular tool, then you're choosing this add-on, then you're putting this thing together and this thing, and so on. And the thing that they always say to me is, and I'm spending hours on it, days on it. I have to spend I've got to book out this weekend because, I need to update like my class schedule and things here. And I'm like, oh man.
Right. It's a great point, James, because a lot of these companies do promote themselves as DIY solutions that are super cheap, like build your website in $1 or something. But it does become a huge markup with all the add-ons and everything else. And if you are doing it yourself, most web design, and this is kind of why I said they end up being good referral sources for web designers, because when you do it yourself and you don't know what you're doing, it becomes extremely costly on the books, and then also with time. That is the biggie. So I think the value for web designers, to do all the updates, the security, backups, all the all-in-one solution like you guys provide, being able to charge for that, you're still saving your clients money, and you're still going to save them an enormous amount of time. So it's a great point.
I couldn't agree with you more. And the interesting thing, though, is also the question of, well, how do you provide the custom development? You call it high touch, the kind of like the movement from soft touch to high touch. How do you provide a custom development, feeling in control experience to a client for a price that doesn't go too far away from that amount? So let's say for example, okay, so you've got your my buddy who's got the gym thing. He's the one who spent kind of a whole weekend like hardcore in these things here, and he's spending about $600 on it. So what I would say to him is, okay, if I'm a web developer, I would say, okay, well, what we can do is we can set you up on your own domain, obviously your own. We're actually going to give you your own IP address, because all of our stuff runs off DigitalOcean, Linode, get dedicated IP addresses in Australia. So you're going to get super fast, super funky. This is going to come through here. And I'm going to give you your own control panel here, where you can, obviously I've turned off all of the, how do you break things, CPAN, PHP, my admin stuff, but you've actually got this overall kind of control mechanism here. And they're like, okay, cool, but it's still going to take me this amount of time to do it. This is where I say to him, don't worry about it. I've actually built an integrated custom development platform into your client manager area. So when you log into your area and you want something done, you just click on this help button, or you click on this context here, you write out the description of what you want, and we will actually offer you with a 24-hour or 48-hour turnaround, like 2 or 3 tickets to actually get that sorted for you. And and therefore we can actually give you not only this platform, for which we're going to say, oh, that's going to be like, kind of say $29-$39 a month. But we've also got this add-on, which essentially for $20 a month is going to give you the custom development work, where somebody will log in and they will change this and they will put this all together. Now, the way that you do that is you integrate simple support platform with the hub client environment I'm talking about, your client portal. And essentially they just log in, ticket comes through, something that will take you or take me, or probably, I'm actually not that great at web development anymore. It's been a while. It was like somebody's actually awesome at it. Kind of 20 minutes to go, okay, I'm going to put in place. And that has just come through and given you, okay, cool. If let's say there's 2 of them coming through, you're on about $40-$50 for that time, which means you can actually afford to hire somebody else to do it. But of course, the real secret and the real magic is that they've got these credits to a month that they know that they've got in the bank, and they don't actually use them every month. Yeah. I mean, just between us, I'm assuming that none of these, my gym guy is not watching this show, but he's only going to use 4 or 5 of those credits in the year, and I'm going to have sold him 24.
Right. And that is the beauty of maintenance plans right there, particularly for web designers. At the time of recording this call, it's funny how timely this is. I just launched the second version of my course. I have a course on how to build a website hosting and maintenance plan. And a lot of people are so leery, just like I was, about starting a plan because they're terrified of having 50 clients that are going to ping them 50 times a month and use up 50 hours. The reality is that never happens. It's like maybe 5%, 10% on a busy month.
And let me tell you how I know this as well. So WPMU Dev, we have, I think, 45,000 paid up, currently subscribed members to our service who are web developers, web clients like you. And if you have a look at, say, Trustpilot, Reviews.io, or Google reviews, Facebook reviews, G2, any of those things there, you will see that we are the highest rated WordPress support company out there, bar none. We just absolutely wipe the floor with people, and I love it. Kind of like Tim and Boyan, who run that area, and our support team are just fantastic. They are the greatest people on earth. We offer so for your web developer people, who come in, we offer literally live, log into your site, fix up your complex hosting problems, or do serious things. We just deal with web developers, and we deal hardcore stuff. We come in those. Now, if those 45,000 people all came in at once, do you think I'd still have a business?
That's a great point. That's a really good point.
And do you think people would like our support? They would not like our support. You would hate our support. The reason that we are able to do that is because and your viewers would know, and any web developer knows, you come across a particularly gnarly problem, you have a particular error, you want to make a particular plugin, because we actually support every single WordPress plugin out there. You have a particularly sticky WooCommerce issue, then when you get stuck, you get stuck. But you're only going to get stuck every now and then. Yeah, most of the time you can roll to yourself. But then when you are stuck, it's like, oh, geez, am I going to go and like have to get a sysadmin or a DevOps person in to sort out this like database thing? And we're like, no, we literally got DevOps people here for you.
Yeah. Or most people would go to SiteGround or GoDaddy hosting if they have hosting there and ask their support. And then those people, like, who knows what you're going to get.
Well, this is the thing. Yeah. You're not going to get like, you're definitely not going to get like a DevOps person, or, we offer like kind of forum ticket support, like a kind of discussion area. And I think we've got an ad thing which says get support from like the whole team, including the CEO, which is true. I actually go in and like hang out there every day. I really enjoy it. It keeps me in touch with members. But we also get our CTO in there. We get our DevOps team. We get our whole absolute crew kind of going in there. But that's manageable because it only happens. And it's actually so predictable. It's so weird. It weirds me out how predictable it is that people are going to need complex, detailed support. And but the same thing happens for clients of web developers, and that's totally predictable. And my thing would always be to people who are concerned about that. Or what's going to happen if I've got 50 clients and it's just me? How am I going to go there? And they're all going to come in at one time and say that is a good problem to have if and when it happens. And if and when that problem happens, then just have a look. You've got more demand than you've got supply. Put up your price.
Yeah.
And offer a more custom thing. But, it so rarely happens. And the balance almost always works out so well. As long as you've got super happy people getting your support, then that's the balance that you just need to keep at. And it can be a very profitable balance.
That's a great point, James. I mean, I've definitely seen that as a web designer with my clients, because then I almost felt bad. I was like, wow, I'm really making a lot on my monthly plan, and like 5 clients at one point I had over 70 clients just myself. And it was usually like a few clients were intensive every month, and I was charging them more, like you said. And then everyone else was like every quarter, maybe every few months, they'd have some updates or something like that. And then it seems like once business owners get going with their business, often the website will be less. I mean, they'll do a lot of work initially with a website design or redesign. And then it's like, it's going to sprinkle in. It's going to trickle in the rest of the updates. It's not as common.
It absolutely is. And I would actually, it's fascinating that you talked about that kind of number 70. I would say that, 40, 50, 60, 70, that's the kind of range which an individual can actually manage if you don't mind having a little bit of intrusion into your weekends. That's a good point. Something comes in. And one of my big passions and what we're trying to do is to actually get to a point where we have the tools and stuff available to kind of get over that 3-figure number, to allow people to actually be able to start to look after that few more clients, give you the systems, give you the processes, and also give you some really kind of integrated, easy ways to provide that little bit of extra support when it comes to you hiring your first part-time staff member, your first full-time staff member, you're kind of like starting to offer support. And so, but when it becoming you and your crew of like 2 or 3 people, and then you're starting to scale up to like 200, 250. We have tons and tons of members who are around that 3 to 4 to 500 and several over 1,000.
Wow.
And those people are taking in, like I said, we're looking at 20, 30, 40 plus an extra bit, maybe up to $1,000 US. But, do the math. It's like, let's say an average of 650 to 750 USD per client per year. And they are managing with the help of like 2 extra people. 500 to 1,000 of those sites.
Yeah, it's a great point. And I was actually thinking, with your push on support that you're offering through your guys' platform, that really alleviates a lot of the problems that most web designers have with a maintenance plan, because it's when you do get stuck on something or you have a WooCommerce issue, if you have to do it all by yourself and your best friend Google, it's going to take a long time. And that's how you get grays, and that's how it adds more stress and everything. When you have either, well, first of all, like a support team like that is huge, because it's experts. It's people who know what they're doing. There's I have a free Facebook group for web designers. I have a premium club.
I remember. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. And yeah, there's tons of groups. I have a premium group. Those are great resources as well. But there is something about a dedicated support team behind your back that really makes you so much more powerful, and is going to save so much time. So I think that in itself, like what a sales aspect for WPMU Dev right there, just to have like good quality expert support in your corner. That's super powerful.
I mean, I'm so happy with it. Every time we see, we basically have a kind of unofficial motto, which is making cool things, making people happy. And and people are freaked out and weirded out. They're like, okay, so you're going to log into my site and clean up this hack or fix these different components, and this is going to cost me like less than like I'm charging one of my clients per month. And I'm like, yes, but you can give it a go. So Soul Spruik, we've got a completely free trial. It's easy to cancel if you don't want to continue with it, and you can literally try a full support thing. And so if you have a particular issue, if you've got a particular problem with your WordPress site now, go to WPMU Dev, sign in, add your site, contact support. They will log into your site and fix it for you, and we'll always be here for you.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I think there's such a difference between that versus, again, typical support that you might get with hosting companies, or I use Divi. I've used Divi since 2014. They have notoriously great support.
Oh yeah,
but they have a ton of clients, and they have a lot. I think it might be fair to say that because they are attracting a lot more DIYers, they probably get a little more support than you guys do, I would imagine, as web devs potentially. But it's a good point that you mentioned earlier. Like, even if you have 50,000 customers, it doesn't mean that you're getting 50,000 support tickets every month. That's not the case. But it is, there's something about quality support behind quality tools too, which is I think a lot of companies are catching on to that. And I don't know if you're necessarily pioneering that, but your guys are certainly in the forefront of that charge of really good customer service support. And I think what you guys are doing, I don't mean to make this like a sales video for WPMU Dev, but you can spice this up and use it if you want. I would, you're welcome to use this. But what I have noticed is that, like I said, I have a lot of students who use your tools, but they're not like, it's pretty cool. They're like raving fans, which is what you want to get when you have a business. And I think that's the motto we as web designers should have for clients. We want them to rave about us. And it takes just as a complete side note, but it kind of takes the edge off of marketing, doesn't it? If you just have really good customers that refer you.
You get that word of mouth. You get people just like passing it around, that's the setup, and that's fantastic. And actually, funnily enough, that works brilliantly for our clients, but it doesn't actually work that well for us, because whereas especially when you don't have like people going to WordCamps or like web developer kind of like conferences, because people aren't necessarily meeting up. But when essentially what we're trying to do is provide that experience for our customers, but then we also give you, the customer, the same platform and the same tools and the same capacities to then deploy it yourself. You can basically, you can completely white label us to provide your own WPMU Dev in your particular niche. Maybe it's photography websites. Maybe it's weddings. Maybe it could even be individual small school websites. All of those, every single like different niche, every single different context. You can basically just turn us into your thing and then go with it.
I love WordPress. I love the community. I love the openness, and my favorite word that I think really articulates what this web design show is all about is co-opetition. Like yesterday I had another gal from Australia, one of my close colleagues. She is complete and utter competition to me. She's a web design coach, but we work together all the time. And we have a lot of similar students and we support each other. I think that's awesome. And I definitely, every time I've gotten a chance to interview somebody from, like yourself, or I was just recently, I got to interview one of the community experience manager with Gravity Forums, and he talks about the partnerships that they have. And
amazing.
It's just, yeah, it's really, really cool. I love the co-opetition, work together. Let's work together, not try to defeat each other kind of mentality, which I think is great. I am curious, what do you think is next in regards to hosting, maintenance? I know we're on the forefront of the client portal access, but being that you're in the weeds with this, is there anything you see on the horizon that might be coming up next?
So we're currently working on, if you kind of are in our community, you kind of pick up on where we're going. We're pretty frank about it. We don't make too much noise about it more broadly. But I think the next stage is the automation of the customer experience, both in terms of providing essentially I would put it as a GoDaddy, Bluehost kind of style new user experience yourself in your particular niche. So let's say, for example, I'm going to go for weddings again, because wedding websites are actually huge. People love their wedding websites, and kind of you want to have your custom domain, you want to have all of your different designs and different setups. You want to do it specifically. You definitely don't want it to look like everyone else's wedding website that there's been to. This, I'm speaking as a client. Kind of. I want it.
That's why I built me and my wife's wedding website, because I was knee deep in web design, so I just threw it together real quick.
Exactly, and so kind of my friend Steve-O, who's like getting his kind of website together. He really wants to have this unique custom setup. He wants to go for it, and he obviously kind of would like someone local. He's going to Google, say, Melbourne wedding websites, Australia wedding websites, those things there. And this is where you, my client, are going to be ranking, because you are .com.au. You have done all your marketing in this particular area. Maybe you've got some Google ads and those different kind of things running. It's very specific to this area. Now, when we land on your site, you've got a couple of options you can offer them. In the first case, you can offer them, okay, let us build your custom website. We're going to do all of this. It's going to be great. We're going to take hands, and people are like, oh yeah, that's going to be like my kind of, 5 to 10 grand kind of like hand holding, taking through. And, a wedding website is actually an interesting one, because the maintenance, how long do you keep it up for?
Right. Yeah. That's exactly why I didn't want to go into that niche, for sure.
But it's a 5 to 10 grand area, but it's a good niche if you can get enough of them. And let's face it, people are getting married, more often, more frequently than ever before. So
that's true. Yeah, that's where so I got some ideas, but we'll keep it at there too. We could have different categories of different kind of weddings, but you'd have like your first time weddings, your second time wedding. You could have them all like the categories. But what is interesting about that is, and I actually think that industry is going to explode now since lockdowns are ending. I think I know a lot of people have held off.
Well, one of my buddies is a chef out at a reception venue at the moment. Apparently it's crazy. Apparently the demand for a wedding on a Wednesday has never been so big.
Wow.
So people come onto the website. So they've got this custom thing here. But what I think the next step is where you as a web designer, web developer, are actually able to offer somebody a selection of templates, a automated process where they find their domain, a bit like, say, you're signing GoDaddy. They select their template that they want, or probably start with a template. Or you can figure it out for yourself. They go through, okay, that's a domain, that's like $15 standard thing. Oh, this is a specific template. Okay, cool. I like this one. And then you're going to take me into this kind of client portal environment, and you're going to be able to actually customize it yourself because, of course, the element of kind of Divi to an extent, going to be making things a little bit easier, needs things, all sorts of these great platforms. And rather than somebody seeing this like kind of 5 to 10K figure, instead they're looking at this $249 setup and, kind of $69 a month because I think they're not going to keep it for a while. Oh, right. But look, there's a 1 year kind of thing to roll it down form in there, and they just click through. And you, as a web developer, you'll set up this environment, and by creating a template, by creating a client platform, but the person who's arrived on your site is literally able to do the whole process, plus billing, plus set up the subscription, without ever interacting with you.
Yeah. And there are some examples of that I've seen. Like one of my colleagues does this for coaches. He has a business, his niche, say niche down there, right?
Niche here, niche with you.
Yeah, it's niche with me. Or we say niche in the fancy areas of the world. But he does coaches. That's it. And he has a process very similar. It's very automated. Client signs up after a strategy call. They submit they pick a template, submit the content. They get their sites done in usually 24 or 48 hours. And I think that's great for these type of niches and these type of sites that are maybe not as complex. They don't need to be as custom. I think that's a really, really exciting area because you can build hosting and maintenance, and it can be about getting that subscription locked in at a lower cost without that time draining custom work. Now, my question, let me play devil's advocate. What's the difference between that and Wix or Squarespace, where it seems like that's what they've already tried to pioneer?
So it's a great question. And of course, you wouldn't be setting up your website if you didn't believe that you had an opportunity to get in there. And I think my compelling difference is twofold. It is subject matter specific. So, kind of your Wix is like kind of, it's very, how am I going to grasp this? Your Wix just doesn't offer the mechanics or the car repair specific kind of website. There might be a couple of things like, this isn't for me. This isn't carrepair.com.au or, kind of like, or this, kind of mechanics.com.au or photography studio, all of those different things. And the second one is this localized component. So which I kind of .com.au it for you. So you've got subject matter specific area. You've got your niche. And the second one is you've got your geographical localization. So again, I'm about to line out the stuff. You've got your Australian server. You've got your Australian IP address. You've got your domain name. You can offer them the Australian setup. You've got an Australian phone number for, kind of custom sport. It's not really custom sport, sales. But, but you've got the actual system that runs all the way through it in that particular area. Now, given the choice between going to your Wix and your Squarespace and doing the work themselves with an impersonal big organization that doesn't specialize in their area, or going to choose you, who costs more, but who is localized subject matter expert and will actually do work for them as well, then I think it's a real opportunity.
Well, and that I was going to ask, if we get into those automated solutions, then the question is, are we going to get right back into the DIY solution where clients can do it themselves? But I think you just hit the nail on the head. I think we're in a time period in a really interesting discovery phase in our industry where it's a bit of a mix where web designers are more needed than ever, even in these quote unquote simple automated type of solutions. So I think you're onto something. I think it's a really, really powerful standpoint for web designers because yes, there's going to be the custom projects that need a lot of custom development, a lot of time, a lot of one-on-one attention, but you don't have to do that on a lot of kind of niche style sites that you could bust out pretty quick and then are pretty common. Like I notoriously spent way too much time getting too far into CSS and custom stuff when all my client wanted was a fairly basic site that converted and got decent local rankings. That was it. So ranking. I think that's a really, like, clients could probably figure out how to automate or they could do the automations and get a site up and put some pictures and text in, but they're probably not going to, and definitely not going to know basic SEO principles and things where I think web designers could come in to really be the support for them. Going back to like what your guys' motto is with your support, I kind of feel like web designers could be like that for clients. I didn't really think about that, but I think we're really into the cusp of that, where you got the DIY solutions. The good news is for web designers, clients are fed up with them. They realize I don't want to be doing this. I want to work on my business. So I think it's a really unique opportunity.
I want my weekend back.
Right. I think we're in a really interesting opportunity time for that, which is kind of what it sounds like you're getting at.
Oh, look, without a doubt. And again, I'm going to just kind of roll back to this wedding thing because I beat it to death. But the wedding thing, if we're talking about, say, Melbourne, where I am, as with any city, with Columbus, I am sure there are a number of classic locations. There are a number of classic spots, and literally, you could almost like go out with your own. Probably a phone, you don't need DSLR now, to actually kind of get some particular pictures. There's probably tons in the public domain. You can literally get a selection of, let's say, I don't know, like say 20, 30 Elementor DEV kind of particular sites. You can give them feature images and context with that, and then you can put up a site where a customer can actually come in without any interaction with you and select, okay, this one, because they will see the pictures of their hometown, which is just around the corner, and it'll be like, oh my word.
Yeah.
And you've got them. You have got them, and they will sign up with that context, which then gives you the opportunity to use support and things there. But you can offer that alongside your bespoke solution. And anybody who's ever been in sales knows that the best way to sell something to somebody is to say, so would you like to choose this bespoke solution or this alternative solution? Here are your options. Which one suits you better? And then, you've got them. They make you a decision between the two things you're offering.
And it's a great point. I've heard a lot recently about the different solutions that would basically be labeled done for you. We do it all. Yes. Done with you. You do quite a bit, but we'll help you, or you do it. And then what's your time worth? So I think that's a really great kind of visual for this type of solution, because it is a great way to mix the two. And I think that's where this is super, super exciting. I was actually thinking too, I mean, you could do this with different industries. You could also, of course, do it niche. I was also thinking for the people who do want to have more close, high value touch type of relationships with their clients, this is still something that can be done a layer back. Like you could still do the sales, you could still do the discovery calls, you could still get the project going, but instead of now hunting for content and then starting a custom site, here is where that automated process could come in, where you've already started the relationship. Now, if you make it, because this is where most web design projects go awry, is during the start of a project, because the web designer will either overwhelm the client or the client doesn't know what is going to happen next. And then the content collection is an issue, copy is an issue, images, all the things that hang up projects. That's what could be automated. And I think that's the really exciting aspect of all this, is you could really do it front facing, where you don't even talk to the client, or you talk with the client, land them, and then the automation starts.
You're bang right, actually. And I was actually looking into Templately the other day, which was something that some of our members have been enjoying, which essentially allows you, I think, from what I could look at, to just store a load of different like Elementor templates and put them all together and do it in one place. And actually, one of the reasons I was looking into it, just from a kind of business discovery perspective, was that we offer our custom templates as well with our hosting. So essentially, we kind of offer a bunch of different things people can use, but anything in future that allows you as a web developer, web designer, to actually create and maintain, let's say, 50 different personalized templates that you can then just roll out, click, 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 is super valuable. And of course, I mean, we've all been there. Anything that doesn't have to involve restoring a backup from here onto a completely new site, and it's just something that you can literally go dick. It just made your life a whole world of easiness. And,
absolutely. And those little, I was just gonna say, those little things that may only take 5-10 minutes add up if you're doing a lot of different sites.
Yeah, they definitely do. And it just makes it more convenient, and it pulls it together. And so it's not just automation for the client, it's automation for you, kind of in terms of actual site creation and putting things together and those stuff. So that's my, that's kind of, it's our relentless kind of focus. Basically, we want to make, and I think that's where you'll find a lot of the WordPress ecosystem heading, is essentially making things easier and more cost efficient, more powerful, providing these tools to web developers and web designers. Where I think, and this is just my personal opinion, having had a look at it myself, is I don't think that the future is going to be, or is necessarily going to the customer. I don't think the future of a successful WordPress business in future is looking at how do I, how do I provide, like, from my level kind of thing, kind of from a product development level, how do I deal with the particular customer? I think it's how do I deal with the web developer, the web designer, who is then dealing with it. It's a business to business, which is where I think we're at. And it's obviously, what you're doing as well.
That's interesting. I remember I had a client who was actually kind of a colleague. So I was a bit taken back by this comment, but he was going to use me to have me design his site for his business. He ended up going with Wix, and he told me, he was like, Josh, are you worried about Wix like running you and web designers out of business? Because you might not be needed if DIYers can do it themselves. 10 years later, here we are. And again, I always notoriously say they've really been an incredible sales tool for us, because people are still fed up with them, and if they're not savvy and if they shouldn't be dealing with websites. So that's an interesting take on that, man. I'm really excited about that. I think there's a lot of opportunity for web designers. I think for folks like you and others who are in the, supporting of web designers, also DIYers, but you're really focusing on us, which is awesome. Yeah, yeah, that's really cool, James. Well, man, I can't believe we're over an hour already. I think it's actually a great wrap up point. I have one more question for you here, but I would love to know, where would you like everyone listening and watching to go? Is there a certain tool that we've talked about that you'd like everyone to try out, or do you just want them to go to WPMU Dev? Where would you like everyone to go after this?
That's a great question. There's so many cool things like knocking around at the moment. I mean, apart from obviously taking us up on our Black Friday offer, which is on now. On
I know. I think this is going to be released in early December, so we may just miss it by the time this goes live.
Okay, well, if you want to give it a go in early December, then come around to us. Let's have a think. Something that would really kind of come around to the ultimate WordPress. So look, I mean. There are so many cool tools out there. I think at the end of the day, I would say to people that it's always worth having another look back in the WordPress.org plugin repository. And the reason that I would say that is that I think you'll find that the standard of a lot of tools are really increasing in that area. A lot of people are realizing certainly my line of business, that you pay it forward with the free kind of obviously everything's open source, but kind of completely freely available, super high quality tools. There's a lot more going in there. And while of course there are wonderful things in Theme Forest and Code Canyon and lots of other fantastic premium solutions, the source of truth and the opportunity for the future is very much in WordPress.org.
There it is. And if you do any sort of plugin searchings, you will no doubt find your guys' plugins and your tools there. And of course, we'll have it all linked in the show notes. I'll make sure we link this in there. That way everyone can check it out. You're just the homepage on your site is a great way to just get a feel for everything that you got. I know it's probably hard to articulate sometimes how much you can include, but it's awesome. It really is an all-in-one solution. So I'm pumped, man. James, one final question for you. I'm just curious, as I love getting a chance to talk to CEOs and founders of companies and somebody like yourself who's really killing it in the industry. What fires you up? What is, like, when you wake up, you've been doing it for a long time. So I imagine a lot of people could be burnt out. I use LearnDash for my courses. And I just recently Justin announced that he was stepping back and he sold LearnDash. He just wasn't feeling the passion for it anymore. I don't get that sense from you. And I applaud Justin for being upfront and real about that. I think it's great. What keeps you passionate? What keeps you fired up about what you're doing? Good question. I suppose it's a kind of philosophy of life kind of question. I'm definitely super passionate. I think
in terms of how I continue to enjoy what I'm doing, I mean, there's nothing. Making cool things that make people happy is never a boring thing. But we constantly listening to our members, a kind of reinvention and a ongoing kind of that kind of ongoing kind of evaluation and drive into new areas and trying new things and working around kind of what people are after, rather than kind of getting stuck in. And I have in the past got stuck, in different areas. That's super important. But for me, just speaking personally, I think I'm as excited and I enjoy the thing that actually first got me when I first started this whole thing, 2006, 2007, which I think I see with all of our members, web developers and web designers who are looking after clients, which is the independence. It's the opportunity to manage and create and look after your own destiny, and to build your own client base, and to be in a position whereby you're determining your own destiny and your own future. And that's something to me that I just find just the most, it's the most important thing. And I love the fact, and I feel incredibly blessed, incredibly happy that I'm still in that position. So just speaking personally.
No, that's awesome. I share the exact same sentiment. That's what fires me up, is the opportunity that's in front of everybody right now to build the business that you want to build. Like, if you want to, I'm very big on, if you want to be a freelancer and a solopreneur and do it all yourself and just hire some stuff out occasionally, you can do it. If you want to have a small team, you can do it. If you want to go the agency route, I didn't want to go the agency route myself. You can do it. You can really do whatever you want to do, which is awesome. It's extremely empowering. It's overwhelming sometimes, but at the end of the day, I'd much rather have the options available to us and to have tools like you guys have and what WordPress is doing for us, than to be restricted or to have only one path to go down. Like, the options are endless. So that's a great way to end this off, man. I think it's super inspiring. And man, James, thanks so much for taking some time out of your morning for us. And I really, really enjoyed chatting with you and getting a peek behind the curtain with what you guys are doing with WPMU Dev. And I'm sold, man. If anyone else isn't sold by this point, I sure am. So I'm excited to see what you guys cook up in the future here.
Oh, thanks so much, Josh. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. Cheers, man.
Hey guys and gals, just wanted to pop in with a couple things before you head out. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a review on iTunes or wherever you listen to this podcast. I would love to hear your feedback, and it will also help other web designers find the show. Be sure to check out the show notes for this episode. Just go to joshhall.co, click on podcasts, and search this episode number, and you'll find all the links, descriptions, and resources we talked about. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, and you'll be notified when the next episode is live. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys on the next episode.